What is going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to the Black Future Month Roundtables. If y'all been rocking with us since the beginning of Black Future Month, with this June, y'all would have experienced our Black health conversation led by Sinclair, our Black education roundtable led by myself, and then now we are talking about Black wealth and how do we, one, identify where the wealth gap is within America specifically, and maybe the African diaspora more broadly, and how do we provide action steps, tangible strategies that we can use to close that wealth gap. My name is Devon Travell, creator of Black Wall Street, the board game, and director of curriculum development for IMI, which stands for Institute of Melanated Innovation. Short conversation about IMI before we get into our panelists for the day. We got two brothers that are going to talk about wealth, talk about their wealth journey, strategies, and again, tangible actions. If you are joining live at any point, y'all can drop questions and comments inside the live chat, and we will bring those up and we can have those questions as a part of the conversation. So, IMI, we're here to do two very intentional things. Number one, increase access to Black Studies courses and experiences for K-12 youth and community members. And number two, serve as a think tank and research center focused on solving problems and improving life within the Black community. Right. So these roundtable talks are our way of bringing brilliant minds from all across the nation, sometimes all across the world, to create solutions for our lifestyle. Number two, we have three core components of IMI. One, there's on-demand classes available for you all, some free, some paid. There's free live events like this event right here. And we are building out our incubator and accelerator space so that we can help future entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs build their businesses. That sounds good to you. Make sure y'all go to www.imifoundation.com. That's imifoundation.com. And if you are joining us live, go ahead and drop your city inside the comments. And if you have any questions, drop those as well. Without further ado, I want to welcome up our two panelists for the day. Josiah, welcome to the stage, brother.
What's going on, family?
There it is. And then we got brother Emery also joining us. What's going on, King Emery?
Not much. How y'all doing? I
Let's.
see I got a black screen. What's going on?
I see that as well. It might be your camera. So I'm gonna brought you down for a little bit, and maybe you can turn off and reset your camera. But brother Josiah, if you can please start off with the introduction, let people know who you are, the brand or company you are representing, and your definition of wealth.
So my name is Josiah Greer. I represent the FYB Presents team. FYB stands for Fire Your Boss. And, we just teach people about being important to yourself and making sure that you put yourself first. And I would say that my definition of wealth to me. Oh, also check out Wise Word Wednesdays, hashtag, every Wednesday we dropping some knowledge for y'all on social medias. My definition of wealth is really to have really an abundance of something, whether that's wealth of knowledge, wealth of education, wealth of information, or even wealth in regards to finance. So I just think really it's having an abundance, being able to share something that you can pass down to multiple generations, not just for yourself or not just for you and your kids, but for your kids' as well too. And so that's my definition of wealth.
Abundance of anything. Love it. Thank you, brother Greer. Emery, welcome back. There we go. We see you back on screen. Pop in. Go ahead and give folks an introduction of who you are, the company you're representing, and your definition of wealth.
Okay, my name is Emery Brown. I work with Tad Realty, and we're a real estate company based in Chicago and Atlanta. And our goal is to help create generational wealth for families through the use of real estate investment. We've been around for about 20 plus years now, and we work with clients nationally and internationally to help families build their portfolios and change their lifestyles in regards to their wealth outlook. In regards to my definition of wealth, I got to piggyback off what the brother just said. They have a scripture that says, a good man leaves his children an inheritance. And an inheritance encompasses so many different things. It's financial, it's spiritual, and it's also educational, right? And if you're not leading those things for your family, you're not able to propel them into a place where they can be successful for the next generations and generations to come. So all those things are imperative. And then when you also look at wealth, and we talk about it financially, it's not a thing where you're just looking at like, I got to amass a whole lot of money. Wealth could be different things to different people on different levels.
Right.
I think Steve Harvey said it the best in regards to we talk about success, right? I can't measure my success to Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant is an NBA basketball player. He's making millions and millions of dollars, but that doesn't mean I can't be a millionaire, right? In my own right. I may do that through franchising. I may do that through writing. I may do that through any type of means of business, but I can be a millionaire and create, a success plan for my family. So when you think about it, it's about being good in your space and understanding that everybody, like my pops always say, all starts out of small. We all start out little babies, right? But we got to grow into things. So to understand, don't get mad because somebody got 20 million. You don't have your 20 million yet. First, work on getting your first 100,000, right? Then get your 500,000. Then get your million, right? If your house is paid for and all your bills are paid and you're saving money and you're able to weather storms and bless other people during their storms, then you're wealthy.
Yeah.
Right? Like they say, it's better to be a blessing to be blessed. I'm encouraging people to put themselves in a position where they can bless themselves and bless their families, right?
Yes, sir.
Just because I got, I might have 100 grand, right? But if my auntie need 1,000, I got that 1,000 for, right? I don't have to have 2 million in the bank at that time. But if I could be a blessing to her at that time and I built systems that's generating passive income, then I'm doing what I'm supposed to do as a father, as a leader, as a contributor to the community.
Yep. And hopefully we're all about to be a blessing to somebody today. I know the wisdom is coming. So if you're watching this live stream, make sure y'all first share this video with someone else that you want to see win. Someone else that you want to see have their net worth grow, their abundance grow, their first property, their second property, the third property be invested in. Share this video. And then number 2, take notes. Right? If you're a scholar, make sure you're taking notes on the phone, on that notepad, whatever makes sense to you. So I want to start us off with a question that may come left field, but I just want to already get us thinking outside the box a little bit. Right? I want to get us thinking outside the box. My first question is, what is something about wealth that you got wrong when you were younger? All right, this could be when you were 15, when you were 16, when you were 30. What is something that you got wrong that hopefully you can teach the younger generation coming up to get that right quicker?
You want to go, Josiah?
I'll let you take it first. You got it.
Okay, cool. I think for me, see, I grew up in the hood. So it's different variations of what wealth looks like, right? Because we got a different perspective on it. I think the first thing I got wrong about money is not having streams of income, right? You thinking, if I got this one hustle and it's going good, it's always going to be good. But that's not the case, right? You can have a job today and be doing good for 5 years and lose your job. And if you haven't prepared yourself with additional streams of income or savings and things like that, you could be in a bad place. So I think when, I was like 16, 17, 18 years old, I'm just like, I could spend money however I wanted, right? Because I'm like, okay, cool. I got a good check coming in. I got a little side hustle. Everything's looking good. I'm pulling down money. But then if something falls short, then you at ground zero again. So you always have to be in a position where you look at least for your household or your personal self, having 5 streams of income. That could be your job. That could be investments. That could be a side hustle. That could be an insurance policy that actually allows you to draw down cash. That could be a number of things, but you want to put yourself in a position where you have multiple income streams coming into your household. Because if one river dries up, that means you still got stuff flowing in and you're not totally dry. And that happens to our people a lot. Like I was talking to one of my students and she was like, oh man, I can't do anything right now because she lost her job, but she hadn't been taking care of her money, right? She's like, man, I got back payments to the bank. If I put my check in my new checking account, they're gonna take so much money from me from what I owe. And you should never be in that type of position. So you always have to think, like 5 steps ahead or 3 steps ahead. Like we talked about earlier, playing chess versus playing checkers. I think a lot of us, because we don't have these conversations at home when we're younger with our parents, and it's not because all our parents or grandparents didn't know. Sometimes they don't tell you stuff in a timely fashion, right? Because you got, everybody had, an uncle or grandfather or grandmother had money, but they didn't really sit down and have the conversation with you about how to maintain this money you're making, right? And that's why we're having this conversation today, to have these real conversations like, okay, yeah, you have to do certain things. You can't just get a check and think as long as you got a check,
right,
this is going to maintain you. You have to build wealth. And it happens, like I said, little by little, money grows and grows. Even if you got an extra $500 coming in your house every month, that's an extra $500 that you didn't have that can pay a bill, that can help you make your next investment, a lot of things like that. So I think the thing for me when I was younger is not understanding how to control money, save money, and invent new money.
That's good. And according to Forbes, I believe the 65% of millionaires have at least 3 sources of income, and 45% of millionaires have at least 4 sources of income. So to your point, if you are trying to build that wealth, you can't just rely on that 9 to 5. You can't just rely on that side hustle. You need to have at least 3 to 4 sources of income coming in to make sure that you're always good, no matter what the economy does. Okay. Brother Greer, talk to us. What's something that you think you got wrong in your younger days when it comes to wealth?
Yes, now I regret not going first, because bro was breaking it down. Everyone was breaking it down, man.
We broke it down last time, bro.
I didn't realize you was gonna preach like that, bro. I didn't know you was gonna preach like that. What I'll say is, when I was younger, I didn't know what wealth looked like. I thought that wealth looked like what kind of kicks you got, what kind of car you drive, what kind of outfit you wearing, how much jewelry you have. I think the perception of wealth I got wrong, and obviously, similar to, Brother Emery here, from the hood, you see certain things, you see certain people being glorified, certain lifestyles. And so I think I had a perception of wealth is this, right? But that wasn't wealth. That was money. There's a difference between having money and having wealth. And I think Emery touched on some of this. It's like, just because you have money right now doesn't mean you're going to have it in the future, because especially what those people were doing that got that particular wealth wasn't necessarily honorable, right? It wasn't, something that was maybe legal. And so, which we understand that it leads to a lifestyle that isn't sustainable.
Right.
And so for me now, being older, I'm able to look back and say that those people who had all those things were really overcompensating for the fact that they had no wealth. But as a child, you see, oh, this person gets a lot of attention. This person has a nice car. This person has this. Oh, they must have boom, boom, boom. Right. But in reality, now as an adult, I'm like, a lot of the people that I know that have a lot of money, they walk around with a regular t-shirt. Right. They go to, you know what I'm saying, to Costco to get some jeans, you know what I'm saying?
Mark
like,
Zuckerberg.
You feel me? Like, they got on some
t-shirt every day.
They got Crocs. They don't even wear full tennis shoes. They got Crocs. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a very different look. And again, not to say that all wealthy people dress like that, because I know there's a whole scale, right, of different people that dress different ways. But I'm just saying I've become more open to the idea that wealth doesn't have a specific look. It has a variety of looks, and it's not just the people who are dressing that we are seeing even promoted now on social media and things like that. And, a lot of these people aren't being real on their social media. So for me, I think learning what wealth could potentially look like, as opposed to just what we've been taught.
That's
now I get my jeans on Amazon. I'm not gonna lie to you. They have because they got the stretchy waist. They got stretchy waist just in case I start eating a little too much. You feel me? It can expand a little bit. You know,
for sure. Look, Costco is definitely my go-to at this point. Costco or Levi's, only because sometimes American Express will give me discounts on Levi's stuff. So gotta use those points.
Yeah, you gotta use discounts. We didn't even talk about discounts, right?
Oh yeah. But Josiah, you bring up a good point that I want to maybe pivot to slightly, and that's how the perception of wealth and money has possibly changed over time, and really the impact of social media on how the younger generation and even any generation is looking at other people and trying to keep up with the Joneses more than ever before, I think. So can we talk a little bit about how y'all feel social media is impacting our perception of what success is supposed to look like, or our perception of how building wealth is supposed to look like?
Yeah, I'm gonna go first because I'm not gonna make that mistake again back to back. So
It's just a blessing, brother. We just shared a blessing.
um, I think I think it's really warped our perception of what wealth looks like because one, people get on social media and automatically people see or believe that what they're posting on social media is the truth.
Mm,
So someone could be in a rented car, someone could be in a rented home, their Airbnb or whatever, for a night, for a weekend, whatever, and they can post it online and people will say, "Oh, I wish I was there." Or someone
mm,
can be taking a lot of different trips everywhere all the time. They're in LA, they're in Houston, they're in, Atlanta, they're in New York, all these different places. And you're like, dang, like my life is terrible. They're wealthy and they're my age or they're younger than me and I'm supposed to be here. Why aren't I here? But in reality, you don't even recognize that that person is a flight attendant. So they get to fly for free.
mm.
You know what I'm saying? Or that
Yeah.
person is a friend of a flight attendant, and that's why they get those. Or that person doesn't have rent because they live with their parents, and so that's why they can spend their money. We don't like social media doesn't give us the background check, right? Of someone. They could just post it, and it's considered real. And I think that now what I've become to do is I automatically, when I see people post things that I don't know, I assume fake. You have to prove to me that what you're posting online is real. Like, right. Like you can go back into the history of Play Black Wall Street, right, and see they have a history of showing the process from beginning to end. It's all out there. But there's a lot of people who they just become social media influencers and they just get these followings and people subscribe and they're on their Discord and things like that, but they have no history in showing that what they've done is real. It might sound good, but have you proven this method to be successful? And what are some ways that you were able to skip the line? It's okay if you were able to skip the line as long as you're willing to admit it and say it. But if you're like, "Oh, I did it by myself on my own," nobody is successful that way. Nobody in the history of life has ever been successful by themselves on their own. You had a brother, a sister, a cousin, a homie, a fraternity brother, a grandma. Somebody helped invest in you so that you can invest in something else. So I think it created this lack of checks and balances and background checks of people's proving that their method is actually correct or proving that what they're posting online is actually the real. You can go back 7 years ago for me for Wise Word Wednesdays. This ain't something I'm just saying because it's popular online. I've been doing Wise Word Wednesdays every single week since 2017. You can go all the way back to show I'm not doing this because I want to be famous. I'm not doing this because I want a lot of attention. I'm not doing this because I want everybody to pay me money. I'm doing this because I want to put out a particular positive message so that somebody who might be going through something one day might be able to have a reference point to say, you know what, life is going to get better. And you can go back into the history and check that's real, that's authentic. And so I think it creates the people have a self-esteem issue because of what they're seeing online. Now I'm gonna let Brother Emery kill it now because I know he's gonna go in.
You see how you do, you Emery?
I'm just gonna add my 22 cents. But the thing is, social media does create that false imagery for people, and it's really bad for young people because they don't know how to discern between what's real and what's not. Like they have a saying that image sees, image feels, image acts. So they'll see something, they feel like, oh man, this is the best thing to do. And they go act without, to your point, doing any background check, really researching how this is done effectively. So, that's why a lot of people get scammed on social media because they'd be like, oh, you can make $5,000 in one day. So like, what was that? The Cash App scam, right? Send me $1,000 and I'll make sure you get 6 back. Huh? Wait, who are you? And where are you from? They didn't look into, is this an investment firm? Are they accredited? Like they just sending people money. And the sad thing about it is if you don't really dig down and research for yourself on what you see on social media, you could be led astray a lot. Now, there are some things like with companies like Amazon, where people are posting real business opportunities that people can get into. But then a lot of times people don't want to do that because it requires work. You're not going to become a millionaire at Amazon overnight unless you just have a hit product or something that just blows out the water and just like goes crazy, goes viral and goes crazy. So I think with social media now, it's more so, to your point, people like us getting onto these channels and having these real authentic conversations about how you get there and being able to show people how to get there and understanding what the path is to get there. It's not about, okay, you're going to get rich today. You could, if you win a lottery, you could get rich today. If you inherit some money, you could get rich today, right? There's a number of ways to get rich today, but in most cases, there's no quick get rich scheme that you can find on social media that's going to get you there in the next 24 hours. So I'll say, I would say what the perception of it is, we have to be in control of our narrative as a community of what we're teaching people. And then I'm not saying calling everybody out. I don't have time to be the police, right? The fake news police. I can't do that. But we have to control the narrative in regards to what wealth looks like and real avenues to get there, so that when kids see things, they be like, okay, yeah, I was listen to Wise Wednesdays. I know I can trust Mr. Josiah, man. He the man. He gonna tell me something true. Oh, I seen Devon. It's like, yeah, his podcast is dope. They be telling the truth. That's the way to continue to thwart that like negative perception or false perception that social media creates. If we stay on that, controlling our narrative and making sure that our advocates and what they call them now, social media ambassadors and all these different names, like, are actually telling the truth. We just go on one quarter just telling the truth. A lot of people will fall into the right place. But as long as we got people who aren't like really speaking the truth and following those 20-second videos, say, let me send you my credit card. Let me send you $1,000. Let me send you this. That'll be the problem. So it's about, we're always going to have a false perception, but the main thing that we could do is to create the true perception.
That's good. That's good. And I think another thing on there is, sometimes people don't necessarily give you the full picture of what the reality is. So, for example, I was following someone on social media who I saw and still see as a very strong resource in business. And they were offering like a mastermind. It was like a $3,000 mastermind. You'll be able to learn how to do X, Y, and Z, build your business a certain way. So I was like, bet, paid that money, learned some dope stuff. And then they had a meetup at the end where you would meet in person to be able to ask more questions. So at the meetup, I'm asking questions like, how do you get health insurance as an entrepreneur? How do you start a 401k and a retirement plan as an entrepreneur? And they're looking at me like, I don't have a health insurance plan. Like, health insurance is something that you don't get as an entrepreneur. And I was like, okay,
that's not the truth.
Exactly. And I was like, well, how about retirement? Like, how are you setting yourself up for retirement? They're like, I don't got retirement. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm living. And this is someone who I saw as like being big. They have a huge following, like hundreds of thousands of people on their Instagram. They're making a good amount of money, at least perception wise. I think they're making a good amount of money. But I'm asking basic questions like health insurance, because I have a family. I need to make sure my family's good, and retirement because I don't want to work forever. And they don't have answers for these. So again, I'm just trying to say that you might not always be getting the full picture, and you think someone is successful and you think they have everything lined up, but they just know this particular lane, not everything.
Right? And then it's also based on their view of what's important in their world, right? Health insurance wasn't important to the young man or young woman. Retirement wasn't important. I'm an entrepreneur, right? When we talked about, that's the perception of what somebody told them what an entrepreneur was. They didn't even think about the longevity, of, okay, I do need health insurance. You could be working an 80-hour week, fall out. What you gonna do? If you got the money in the bank, then you cool, right? But if you ain't got the money in the bank, you short. Right. Like, you go into the county hospital and they gonna get to you when they get to you, right? And that goes to show you how people, like I said, the perception. They may have got a lot of great information before they started their brand, right? Read this book, but no one really had a real conversation with them about other important things they have to sustain in life. And that's why when you ask those real questions, like, well, how are you taking care of retirement, right? How am I gonna take care of health insurance? And they're like, we don't do that. And that's because it's not something collectively that was important to that group of people or that particular individual. He may have individuals on his team that has the things that he doesn't have. And that's why understanding like the overall truth and creating these narratives for these conversations is very, very important. Because you got people who are out here right now hosting podcasts about the benefits insurance, and especially in the Black community, because of the history of insurance companies not paying out policies or stealing money and things like that. We need to have trusted brands that we can invest our money in and create generational wealth for our families. People don't even talk about life insurance like that. Okay, let me get $1 million life insurance policy, right? The average Black person is like, they ain't gonna pay me. I'm not gonna spend the money, right? Whereas you'll never hear that for somebody in other communities who have been paid out, right? So we need to have those conversations. Life insurance is a great way to set your kids up to become real business owners, create those multinational enterprises and things like that. Because if I could leave you $5 million, right, each, you're on a better start than most people will ever get in their lifetime, especially coming out of our community, right? I was watching this video of 50 Cent and Dr. Dre talking about when he first got his first deal, right? Dr. Dre gave him $1 million, right? And he was on Jimmy Kimmel show. That's what it was. So he's like, did he tell you anything about doing anything with your money? Dr. Dre said no, right? Now, this is a multimillionaire who gave a kid off the street $1 million, and they didn't have a real conversation about wealth building. Think about that. And they're in positions in organizations where they're creating billions of dollars every day. Got multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar artists, and y'all didn't have a conversation about what he needs to do in order to ensure that he builds wealth. He said he'll be okay. Now we know 50 figured it out, right? Yeah. He got his own studio now, Junior Studios in like Louisiana. He got power, and he owns stars. Let's just say that. He definitely owns stars, but he should have been able to have that conversation with Dr. Dre. And that shows the disparity of how we don't communicate in our community enough, right? Dr. Dre should have been able to say, okay, 50, I'm going to send you over to talk to my investment banker, right? I'm going to send you over to talk to my insurance guy. I'm going to send you over to talk to my tax attorney, right? Because these are things that business people have, right? Yep. So we need to be more adamant about sharing those resources and connecting people to those trusted resources so they can be in better positions, because there's no way in the world the person that you went pay $3,000 to see take their class shouldn't have health insurance, nor a retirement plan, bro. Now, if he got $1 billion in the bank already, okay, right? Like you don't need it, but that's a real conversation if you're teaching entrepreneurs, because when you're an entrepreneur, you're all by yourself.
Right.
Until you have built you a team and infrastructure in order to handle certain things. And then if you're not thinking about that, how are you going to pass the information along to your teams? You can't have a company. Say what you say?
I just wanted to shout out the 4M, podcast, because I'm not gonna lie, y'all document the whole process. You know what I'm saying? Like throughout literally, I was just watching a video the other day on TikTok, and y'all were talking about the bird process. You know what I mean? Y'all talking about, and y'all use real numbers and you use real property. You know what I'm saying? You're like, this property costs this much. We put down this much. We call renovation. And so you're documenting the process as it goes to where people have that as a source of reference, to where when they're looking into it, because that's how I got involved in it. I saw people doing it, and I began to do my own research, and that's how I began to find certain things. So I just wanted to make sure I shout out y'all's podcast, because the documented proof is there. And so I appreciate y'all being honest about the process that you're actually doing, so people can have that as a reference.
Thank you. And it's a roller coaster, right? It's not all wins on that podcast. So there's some L's that we definitely share on there too.
Oh, I saw.
Man.
But that's the truth, right? You can't have success without failure.
Facts.
You always got to have, they coincide. You got good and bad, light and dark, success and failure. It's always going to come to it. But what you guys are doing, bring us in today to have these conversations. This is the narrative I'm talking about. This is how we control the narrative. And this is how we empower the community. Because like I say, I'm charging $3,000 for a class, and I can't even tell you about life insurance.
But I want to, and that was an interesting experience. But I want to get us to the wealth talk, right? So this is probably one of the core questions, and I got 5 more after this, but this is probably one of the core questions that I want to make sure that we can talk through and give people functional advice on. And that
Mhm.
is the median Black household wealth is $44,890, while the median white household wealth is $285,000. How do we close, or at minimum, how do we decrease this wealth gap over time, right? We have to also understand that this didn't necessarily happen in 1 year, right? We do know that through 2022, the wealth gap did definitely increase because home prices inflated, stock market prices inflated, and those that were holding those assets currently saw those benefits. But over the next 50 years, over the next 100 years, what strategically can we do to decrease this wealth gap?
Okay, I'll jump in first on this one. I think the first thing we have to deal with is looking at the history of our people and what are the barriers that have held our people back from creating wealth. And one of those things is education, right? How do you build wealth? The household that's making, like a white household that has $285,000 a year, they're doing something totally different than the household is doing that's making $44,000 a year. So there has to be some process to getting to $285,000 a year. Is that husband and wife, or boyfriend and girlfriend couple? They go to school, get a degree, get $100,000 earning, $100,000 a year job. That's one way to do it, right? But then how do you sustain that? That's why it's so important where we have these conversations about what does I would say, the wealth plan look like for the Black family. It almost like we need to create a toolkit that we can actually disseminate to the publics, disseminate into the public schools and to the teachers and things like that, to have these real conversations about building wealth. Like one of the things that we're getting into right now in the Chicagoland market is we're doing financial literacy. That's the biggest part of what we need to teach in our community, because we're not having those conversations at the table with grandma, right? Because grandma may not know all this stuff, right? But we have to bring the information into the fold. One things that we're doing at Tad Realty now is we have partnerships with some local high schools. So just like, the conversation we're having about the Black Wall Street game and doing things to make real estate real.
So I know the conversation, but bring the conversation here, brother Emery. What conversation we having?
Okay, so what we're talking about right now in regards to, like, we need to create a financial literacy kit that we can send out into the community, that we can share, and then also open it up in a way that I would say, like, I would use open source. It's a technology term in regards to allowing teachers, educators, advocates like us to come in and build on this platform where we can share this information and create those, if that's a series of videos, documents, whatever it is, that can always be shared and can always be a resource to the community. That doesn't matter if it's today or 100 years from now. We need to make sure that information is integrated and make sure that we are actively teaching this. Everybody's not going to follow the roadmap. We know that's true, right? Some people may take a couple of things, say this, I'm good with this. Some people may take more and do it all. But we have to make sure that the information is valid and available to the community.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I think we're taking very similar approaches out here in the LA area, where we're partnering with elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, and teaching them financial literacy and teaching them 4 specific pathways to building wealth, and talking to the students and saying, okay, out of these pathways, which one do you think you would use to make your first $100,000? So we go through how to make $100,000 in the stock market, how to make $100,000 in equity in real estate, how to license intellectual property to make your first $100,000, and how to build a business so you can make your first $100,000 through entrepreneurship. And the kids, like, they get exposed to these 4 different pathways, and they choose different ones based on who they are. Some are like, oh, I like the stock market. I like the passiveness. I'm not in a rush. I can wait 10, 15, 30 years. So I'm gonna do the stock market. Other
That's
people are
dope.
like, right? Other people are like, you
Yeah.
know what? I'm an artist. I like drawing. I like writing books. So I'm gonna do the intellectual property route. And I'm gonna try to sell my stuff to Disney, Marvel, XYZ. Other people are like, I just want a house. for me and for my mom. So I'm gonna go into real estate, and that's how I'm gonna build it. But to your point, Emery, we need to expose the students to how do you build wealth, right? It's not just about making money and having a side hustle that's bringing you cash. How do you make money and generate wealth without the use of your time is the key.
Yeah.
All right.
Capturing your time. Time is more valuable than anything.
Facts.
The more you control your time, the more that you can do with your time. And that's what, like passive income is so important. And like what you like, your model that you're teaching in the schools out your way is dope, because people aren't really having conversations with kids about investment and investing in the stock market. And, like we've been doing things in regards to building businesses and things like that, but we haven't even had a conversation about the stock market. I wish Miss Washington was on the phone, because she was a former principal at CPS, and she works, runs some programs over at the Air Force High School Academy in Chicago. We definitely, want to talk to you about that, because the more that we can collaborate and bring programming together and not, like they say, gatekeep information, the more people know. And then what the great thing about it is, the more it will become common to do. We need to make it a part of culture now.
Exactly.
It's not a thing that, mama don't know no more, granny don't know no more, right? The kids don't know. This is a part of our culture. We're wealth builders. This is how we transform community, right? That's why I love so much about your game, the Black Wall Street game, because it's a piece of real history that people can connect to and see themselves. So like one of the biggest things that we do for our kids with who are in art and design is we try to tear down the stratosphere of where you can make it and how you can make it, right? When you could see somebody that looked like you, that came from your neighborhood and done something, it's like, wow. Like I talked to some of my students, like, you a marketing director at a real estate company? You used to work for Burrell Communications and write TV commercials for Toyota and all types of people be looking crazy because like, but you grew up on the south side of Chicago in the hood. They don't believe it's real at first.
Yeah.
Then when you show them the work, it's transformative. I'll tell you the first time I realized how powerful it was to show up for your people. Chase, I was working for a company called the Marketing Store Worldwide, right? So we had clients like McDonald's, Coca-Cola. Those are my two primary clients, right? We did a Monopoly game, all types of stuff. So this is like we had multi.
You can't say Monopoly on this platform, right?
Oh, I'm sorry, brother. We all Black Wall Street here, trust, right? But that was just, what I'm saying, just an example of the type of business we had.
Yes,
right?
sir. Yes, sir.
So I had got to the point in my career where I was looking like, I do all of this stuff to make people money, right? But I don't see a lot of this money coming back into my community, right? And it moved me in a way. I was like, I need to do something else, right? So one of my friends, who was also my partner, she told me about a program that Chase Bank had at the time called Real Men Read, right? So they just wanted you to come into the public schools and read a book every month to kids. But you had to, when you first got there, you had to introduce yourself and talk to the kids about your career and things like that, right? So I'm coming in, right? I've been doing marketing so long that's like, another TV commercial, nothing like it's just, it's just work to me. So I shared my portfolio with them and some of my TV commercials, right? And I got about 30 kids, and these are all Black kids in a classroom on the south side of Chicago. And they lit up like lights, right? One time I see my clients light up like lights is because they finna make some money, right? They're excited to see you. They're happy to see you. But what it did for me, it made me understand how important it is to see the future, right?
Facts.
Of what you could be, or what's possible, what you can be. I stayed in the program about 2 years. I took the kids to one of the ad agencies I was working with. We made TV commercials. They had pieced the whole thing. It was a very transformative experience for them, right? Because they would have never just went downtown Chicago into a skyscraper, into an advertising agency, and had conversations with Black creative people who are producing creative work for national and international brands. And that made me realize at that point, that really started my journey of becoming an educator. That made me realize at that point is that we need to show up. We need to be there, and we need to share information, because you'd be surprised. Because like when I got into the advertising business, I'm gonna tell you who inspired me.
Yeah.
Eddie Murphy.
What? I love it. I love it. Well, I want to get us back to the question on how do we close the wealth gap? And we talked about education as one pathway, and I want to get Josiah in here to talk about what from your perspective, your vantage point, how do you think we can close the wealth gap within America?
I think it's about uh, purchasing property. I think
Mm,
and holding onto that property. Not selling Big Mama's house. Not selling Grandpop's house. I think that um, we have people who, families who had homes, and especially in the South for generations, and those homes are being sold. And I get it. The price of homes are extremely high, so they're looking at how much they can profit. But ultimately, that is going to continue to allow people to have wealth if they keep that house, right? Maybe you pull out some equity and use it to purchase something else or something like that. But I think that they're not we only have Earth. That's
mm,
it. They're not going to be able to make extra land on Earth, right? And so at some point, we're going to run out of space. And
Mhm.
so to have ownership of a particular space, you can do a lot more. There's so many different avenues that you can take when you actually have the property, especially if you're talking about 30 years later where you've
mm,
done with the mortgage, right? And so all you're doing is paying property taxes and insurance. Now you have freed up your cash flow to be able to do other things. A lot of times, we don't own. Um, two, when we do own, are the ones that we have owned for a while. Like I'm from the Bay Area, so I'm from Richmond, but looking at some of the places in Oakland, I got some friends and family who still live in the Bay Area, and they're like, the rent prices are crazy. People are paying
yeah,
$4,200 for 1,200 square feet, 2 bedroom, 1 bath, you know what I mean, for rent.
right.
How are they going to be able to save up enough money to actually purchase? And the purchase price in the Bay Area, especially in places like Oakland or Fremont, you're talking about, if you really want a safe space in a nice neighborhood, you're talking about 1.3 mil.
Easy.
You know what I'm saying? So how can you ever afford to save up the 3.5% down? Of course, there's different programs like NACA and things like that. But I'm just saying, like, these are the hurdles that are created to stop people from being able, that we actually even create for ourselves, to stop us from being able to have that generational wealth. So I think we have to be able to invest in property, whether it's a house, multi-unit, whatever.
Yeah.
Invest in that, and then you can see how later on down the line, when you are looking to create a change, a lasting change within the community, you can't just do it for yourself. So if you're
Mm,
saying, "Hey, I'm going to buy this house, or I'm going to buy this property just so I can be rich," then your mind is not right. Like the brother said, the Bible says generations. The good man leaves inheritance for his children's children, right? So generations. So if I'm thinking about purchasing this property, or if I'm thinking about buying this home, I have to ask myself, how is this going to benefit my grandchildren? So that
Mhm.
means I have to plan 30, 40, 50 years in advance in order for to see the long-term success. So I think
yeah.
we have to invest in those properties. We have to maintain and hold those properties instead of selling. And then we have to make sure that we're planning for generations beyond. Because Tupac said, "I might not change the world, but I'm going to inspire the person who will." We have to have
Yeah.
think that far in advance, that you're
Mhm.
going to inspire somebody maybe 50 years from now, or you're going to be able to be a support system for
Mhm.
somebody 50 years from now because of the decision that you're making today. So again, going
Love
back
it.
to it's chess.
It's chess. And
Oh, it's,
I,
it's chess, or it's play Black Wall Street. You did.
We playing Black Wall Street.
let's play Black Wall Street. Come on, y'all better get you a game. I love it, and I want to give some big ups to my grandma. And if you listen to our podcast, you watch my videos, I'll talk about my grandma in a multiple different fashions. One, I was living in her house when the idea of Black Wall Street, the board game, came to me. But for this context, my grandma used to be a real estate broker. And technically, she still got her license. She keeps it active just in case she needs to get back there in the streets. But she's a real estate broker. And one day she mapped out all the different properties that she's owned in her lifetime. Right? It was some in Carson, some in Rancho Palos Verdes, some in different parts of LA. And she mapped it out and she was like, "This is what I bought it for. This is how much it's worth now." This is how much I bought it for. It's how much worth now. And she added it all up, and it was like 3 point something million dollars worth of real estate, and it was like 6 properties. And after she did that, she, sat me down. She was like, Devon, I want you to know right now, I'm sorry. If we would have kept all these properties, you and your family, us right now, we would be millionaires. But at that time, we decided just to sell them. But this is a lesson to you. Keep the properties in the family.
Mhm.
Keep them because they're going to appreciate. And with that being said, I want to talk about two sets of data, and then I'm gonna throw it over to Emery because real estate is what Emery does, right? So
Man.
I'm gonna pass it over to Emery after this. But 44% of Black Americans own their house, while 73% of white Americans own their house, right? So clearly we need to close that real estate gap as well. But two, I found this data that shows the basically distribution of how we're building our wealth. And if you look, the large majority of how we build our wealth for Black Americans is the net housing wealth. Right just above that is business equity. So starting a business is a great way. I believe it was about 5.9% of our net worth is created through business equity. It was 19.1% is being built off of home equity. So those two are really good pathways for us. Stock market was less than 3%. So we need to make sure that we're putting possibly more money into the stock market. And liquid assets was in the negative for the Black community. It was negative 1.1%. But with that being said, I want to pass it over to Emery to give us, how do we really build wealth with real estate, whether it's a investment property, whether it's a single family home? Can you talk people through a little bit from your vantage point on how we build wealth through real estate?
I think one of the things that we missed the mark on as a community is understanding the loan programs and funding opportunities that banks make available for us.
Mhm.
So I think one of the first things that you can do as a new home buyer is to get a 203K loan and buy a property, like Josiah said, in your community that you can renovate and you can get a great after repair value. So
Why
now you have
203? Talk to you. Why 203? This is my first time. I've never heard of a 203 before. Break that
Okay.
down.
Fix it up.
All right. So a 203K loan is a purchase and a construction loan for a homeowner, right? So, like in real estate for investors, we have hard money, right? Which is purchase and construction. But for homeowners, it's called a 203K loan. Now, it may be called something else where you guys are at, different, states have different speech communities and terminologies. But here in Illinois, it's called a 203K loan. So what we'll do with a homeowner is, say, for instance, you find a house that's $80,000 and it needs like $100,000 of repairs, right? But after it's repaired, right, it's worth $320,000.
Mm-hmm.
Now you have instant equity, right? With that equity that you have, now you can go and either, say, for instance, you want to become an investor or a landlord, right? You can either go and take some of that equity, say take $50,000 out of it and say, okay, I'm going to take this $50,000 and I'm going to make this be the start of my investment fund. And I'm going to buy my first multi-unit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, normally you'll have a hard time getting that cash if you're just getting it from your job. But because you built it into a plan to buy real estate, now you can actually use that money. You can pay for your kids to a college tuition. A lot of different things you can do with equity that you have because of a 203K loan. So I would say, look, you take that, what was that? I said 180, and then we said 320. So that's about what? 140,000 that you got. That's a lot of money for a family who didn't have money at first, right? Sure. You take 40,000. If you want to take $40,000 and take it out and make it liquid, now you can put that into your bank account, right? That shows that you have what? Cash. Now you can go to somebody else and get a loan. Okay, now we might want to do a hard money loan. Okay, I got 40,000. I want to give me a small 2-flat. Get you a 2-flat with a basement that could be converted into a 3-unit, right? So you go from a 2-unit to a 3-unit, right? If they're all 3 bedrooms here in Chicago, you charge $1,500 to $1,800 per unit, right? You fill all 3 of those up, more than likely you're gonna cash flow about $1,500 a month, right? Depending on what your expenses are and how everything works out. But now you get what? You still got $100,000 in the bank, plus you got your own house, plus you're bringing in $1,500 a month of passive income, right? That's how you start to build wealth. But sometimes, like they had this book, I think the name of it was called Jesus. It's called Jesus, My CEO, right? And they have a thing in there, they're talking about building on bad ground. The problem that we look at, and to Josiah's point about buying our community, a lot of us look at our community as bad ground. We have so much opportunity to build wealth in our communities, but we just turn a blind eye because everybody's trying to do what? Get out the hood versus what? Invest in the hood.
Meanwhile, companies is waiting for us to get out so they can buy and boom it back up.
Yeah. So y'all have heard of opportunity zones, right?
Of course.
So it's crazy how literally, if you look at the map, it's mostly our communities that are the opportunity zones. And I was driving through Inglewood the other day, and it's demolished a whole bunch of apartment buildings, and they're building, I forgot what they call it, but it's where the Forum is, it's where the new Clippers Stadium is, and the Rams Stadium. They got new apartments, restaurants, an opera house. Like, it is nice.
It's called gentrification, brother.
Gentrification.
Right, that's the word. That's the word.
For sure.
But to your point, right? We're looking at it like it's bad, but they're looking like, ooh, there's opportunity. There's no competition there. They already have an active audience because they're gonna come down here and eat some of this food, come to these shows, things like that. Our problem is we have to start building in our communities. And like I said, taking advantages of those particular type of loan types. I mean, like here in the state of Illinois, right? They have loan programs for single moms where they'll give you free money as a single mom. Nice. They even will let you buy houses with Section 8, but people don't want to do that. Section 8 will pay your rent for up to 15 years if you already have a Section 8 voucher, right? You have to take advantage of that. Go buy you a house. Why are you going to pay rent and you can get a house? There's nothing wrong with rent. Some people don't like houses. Some people don't like the upkeep. But then things is, then go get you a 2-flat. Make you a condo association. Let somebody pay HOA fees. Somebody else cut the grass, do all the stuff you don't want to do, right? But we have to be active about utilizing the resources that are available. I went to American Express, had this small business conference about several years back. And the sister who was running the conference, after the conference, she was like almost in tears. She said, we have so much money that's get left on the table because we don't want to go through the application process. Apply, utilize the resources, utilize the bank systems that will give you opportunities to create the wealth that you need. $1,500 a month to some people is nothing, right? But if you just starting out as a family, you just got $140K in equity, you put $40,000 in your bank account, right? Because you could take 80 out, just put 40 in the family savings, 40 in the investment, right? You still got money in equity, right? And you bringing in $1,500 a month. Think about that.
Oh yeah,
you're in a better place than you would ever been just working a regular job off of doing what? Purchasing 2 pieces of real estate.
Right. And
that's how we got to think. Small. Just start small. You don't have to make all the money right now. But if you duplicate that success, right, you get 1 2-flat, get another one, right? So you go from what? 3,000, 1,500 to what? 3,000, right? 3,000, 4,500. 4,500, what? 6,000. That's $72,000 a year that you wouldn't have had you not taken that opportunity. And guess what? In the buildings, it's the same thing with the equity system. I could buy a building for 80,000. Use the same numbers, right? Buy a building for 80,000, renovate it for 100. ARV could be 400,000.
ARV stands for
after repair value. I'm sorry.
Yeah, we gotta teach. We gotta teach on here.
Yeah.
But
I'm so used to, that's the terminology speaking every day. All my clients.
This is what you do. I know. And to give folks even more context, Josiah mentioned how on our podcast, me and the Queen says hello, by the way, Josiah. She just walked in here a second ago. And to Emery. But we did a breakdown of a property that we purchased and renovated in partnership with TAD, right? Because we're not in Chicago. So we reached out to April from TAD, and they were able to help us, find a property, renovate the property, and then go through those numbers. They're property managers as well. Amazing group of folks over there. But like I said, this is what they do. They help people find properties, renovate the properties, rent out the properties, all while making the south side of Chicago look nicer. All values are going up, and your hands off. So looking that extra 15 a month is a blessing, believe me. Okay. Josiah, I also know you're into real estate investing as well. Anything you wanna add to the real estate conversation before we move to a very, very hot topic right after this?
Nah, I mean, he broke it down. There's nothing
Broke
much
it
I can
down.
add to it. I mean, he said everything
Okay.
that needed to be said, so I'll just say ditto.
Ditto. There it
I
is.
mean, but you know, like you said though, brother, when we got to buy back the community, right? Because gentrification, once they start buying the land and then they put the property values go up where you can't actually buy anything, then they've taken land from you. And land is important. If you look through the history of the world, every great nation had what? Land.
Land,
Yeah, and
land and
I
water.
also say, Jay-Z said, "Gentrify your own hood." So
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with gentrifying it. The issue is that it's outsiders gentrifying it and pushing those that are from there out. So we want to gentrify our own areas, build it up like you just said, you just did with that your property in Chicago. You made it, you bought it, you made it look nice. And so and because you're also black, you're able to say, okay, we're going to make sure that this is owned by black folks. So that way we determine who we want in that space and not some outsider.
Exactly. Exactly.
Mhm.
And that
Exactly.
is that's the Black Wall Street model.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's literally what O.W. Gurley did back in 1897 when he moved to Tulsa. He went there and there was a whole section of land that was barren. And he was like, I'm going to buy this section of land and I'm going to build it up and I'm going to sell it to specifically black families and I'm going to sell it specifically to black businesses. And then within 20 years, Black Wall Street was created. So how do we
Mm-hmm.
keep doing that today? Every time I drive around in LA and in Riverside, even in Sacramento, I see open lots, right? So there's opportunity for people like us to come together. You pull in 5, I pull in 5, someone else brings in 10, someone else brings in 30, and we can start building more in our community. And no disrespect to Jay-Z, but gentrification specifically is when you go in and you push the local or the native people out of that land.
Right.
So we can't gentrify it because we want to stay there. It needs to be another word. I don't know what the
That's
word.
true. That's a good point. Make it up. Black Wall Street. Make it up.
Look, make
Black
it
Wall
up.
Street, your own hood.
Black Wall Street, your own hood.
I
Or
like that. That's catchphrase now.
oh yeah, listen, Black Wall Street, your hood. Let's go invest in it. But speaking of which, I wanted to get to a touchy conversation that talks about specifically how land, businesses, wealth have been stripped and taken from the black community. And is there an intentional way that we can bring it back? And the word that usually comes to mind is reparations. So do y'all believe African Americans should get reparations? If so, what would it look like? If not, why not? I know
I'll let Josiah start with that.
I know this is a deep one. This is a deep one.
For me personally, it's not even a question of whether or not we should. I think it's obvious, that we should. I think the Jewish people received reparations for the Holocaust. The Japanese received reparations for World War II. Even the natives, receive reparations in regards to how we, occupied their land. And so I think it's not a matter of if. Yes, we should. The question is how, right? What does that reparation look like? And I think that's the part where I struggle with, because I don't think it should just be just a cash and then that's it, because there's not enough money that they can give us to really show the breakdown of what it has done to our community. Unless you're talking about each black person gets, $10 billion, which again, we know they're not going to do that, right? I don't think there's a specific amount of money that you can get. Like, how can you give me money for the fact that my great great grandparents, who suffered through slavery, right? Like, how can you give me a certain amount of money? What about their relatives? Do we account for the the people who were lost during the transatlantic slave trade, right? Like, how do we factor in those numbers? And not only just that, like when we talk about gentrification, I'm sorry, when we talk about reparations, what about the people who have lost due to red zoning, right? Like, what about the people who were forced to be in ghetto communities and then their family members were killed because of it? Like, how do we factor that into the reparations list? You know what I mean? Like, is it their brother that gets the money? Is it their parent that gets the money? Like, it's just so that's why I don't know if there's a number that makes sense to where I'd be like, okay, because essentially what reparations is saying is that once we do this, you can no longer complain about that. Right. That's essentially what they're trying to get this monkey off their back. They like, look, y'all been talking about slavery and racism for the long time. If we give you this, you can never mention it. That means that potentially DEI programs could be eliminated from all, education systems. That means potentially, HBCUs, right? Could potentially be why. Like, how does it affect everything? Right. I think reparations should be, or could be, again, I'm not an expert on this, but I think reparations could be in the form of land. Give us a particular space but like each Black family is awarded 40 acres. You know what I'm saying?
Bring back
that, right? So yeah. I think I think it has to be something that if you give just them a lot of money, they're going to blow it. We get money every year as a community. We spend trillions.
Yep.
We get money all the time. We spend it on things that we don't need to impress people that don't care, right? We think it's just really real talk. So I don't know if a check would do it, even though I ain't turning down no money. But I'm just saying a check. I don't know if a check would suffice, but I do think if there is going to be a check, it also has to come with some type of land or tangible asset that creates equity. You know what I mean? And not just something that, because real talk, like the way gas is going up, the prices of everything, inflation is crazy. So if you give everybody $1 billion, that $1 billion could be worthless in a year or 2 years or 5 years. And then they can't complain about any type of things that they've had. So that's just my 2 cents on it.
Oh yeah. I think I double down on the land for sure. I think it's going to be somewhere random, like it's going to be in Kansas, Nebraska.
We need California or Texas or New
California
York.
land.
We need some land that actually is worth something. You're not going to give us the stuff that don't nobody want. Don't put us in Idaho, okay? Like we need California, Texas, or New York, or somewhere where there is a huge value that comes with California, because we got so many different ports. Same thing with New York, right? Like, so we have these different areas that we know for sure is going to cause us to be able to have different equity.
Yeah. And I think the thing that I would add on it is I think there needs to be some type of dividend, kind of similar to, similar to how corporations work, like based on GDP of America, then we get a certain check that hits our account every single month, every single quarter for us being able to be the foundational people that built this country.
Right.
I don't think it's clear. I don't think there's any argument that America would be where it is today if it didn't have slavery, right? There's no question. It wouldn't be the corporate powerhouse and the global powerhouse that it is without going through that institution. So there should be some type of dividend or monthly, quarterly payment that comes to the ancestors of the people that helped build this country economically.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Then go, Emery, talk to us.
Okay. So to add on to that, I think it's very interesting to your point. How do you quantify that? It's like in regards to numbers. We could say, everybody get $1,000 a month. And to your point, people going to just spend the money. But if we can get land, and if we can also get intellectual property, and what I mean by that is we have a lot of Black geniuses who have built corporations, who family have not seen a penny of the wealth that they produced for the inventions. I mean, we can just do a short Black history list. Light, the flame for the light bulb. You wouldn't have no light without that. You got stoplights. We can just go through a whole number of things. But I think one of the key things too is also what does that reinvestment look like in education for Black communities too?
Mm-hmm.
Because like we need a financial investment as well. Because like giving people money, some people are going to do right by money, some people not going to do right by money. But like I think it's in San Diego, they have a lot of the tech corporations. It's something they do called 1% Good, right? And they invest in the school systems there in San Diego, and that's PayPal, a lot of big tech companies, right? So what does it look like as a community where we build something that the government helps funds, that's a continuous investment in those key pillars to make a community sustainable and successful? That
Yeah.
will be a true look at reparations. Because like you said, like in the transatlantic slave trade, it's so many brothers and sisters that we couldn't even count the bodies we wanted to, right? All the people who have been stolen from, it's too much, right? So how do we create a system that it can be invested in by the government, right? We don't just, we want the land, but how do you invest in our systems? Are we getting $1 billion a year towards education, right? We're getting $1 billion a year towards business development. Are we getting, and we need more than that, but I'm just using $1 billion as an example, right?
Right.
We need to, have that conversation, because I put you like this. Here in Evanston, in the Chicagoland area, is a community, they gave reparations to Black people, right? And it didn't come with none of that backlash of like, you can't talk about Black history no more, any things like that, right? But it's just a check. What are the sustainable systems that we can develop and the government can help co-develop with us so that we can have a true community that's, not codependent, but collaborating to create what I say is our version of the American dream, the vision,
Right.
The dream that we've taken from us. What does that look like? Because they've been stealing from us for years. But if we can figure out a way to get those pillars of community put in place and to get funding put in those pillars and also get that land, I think that will be a sound outlook at the beginning of reparations.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I love it. This is an amazing conversation. If you are joining live, we appreciate you. Feel free to drop any of your questions, your comments inside the chat. I've seen some come up already. Sherry, we appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in from Chicago. Sinclair, we appreciate you. Community beautification, we hear
Yes.
you. Yes,
Yes.
love it. Love it. If you're watching this in the future, thanks for tapping in with us. Black Future Month. We know there's a lot of people in the future watching as well. Keep the conversation going inside the comments. All right. Couple more questions for y'all. I want to bring the diaspora to this conversation. All right.
Ooh.
And would you consider the African diaspora wealthy? Why or why not? If you've haven't heard the term African diaspora before and you're watching, the African diaspora just represents all African people that have been dispersed all across the globe or all across Africa, Jamaica, the West Indies, of course, America, Canada, Asia, Japan, wherever they might be, the whole entire African diaspora. Josiah, go in on us.
Okay. So I'm actually going to say yes. I
Mhm.
think we are very wealthy. I think the problem isn't in what we have. The problem is what we do with what we have. We
Mm.
have a wealth of information. We have an abundance of history, right, in what we are capable of. And we do have people that are doing some amazing things. I think the problem is there's a disconnect within the Black community. And I think it all starts in the home, right? When you look at Black people, right, we'll go, even people from the hood, like we talked about earlier, they want to leave. So, for example, we'll go to college and get a degree, and we're getting a degree because we don't want to go back home. We're like,
Mhm.
I am never going back to there. I want to have my own. So now I'm going to move further away, right? Which means that, what about when you have a kid, right? So
Mhm.
now you have to pay for like childcare, as opposed to if you were living at home with grandma, or if you're living at home with
For sure.
moms. Well, guess what? That's your childcare. So now you free up those funds to be able to do something else. And I think just within the Black community, we have this hyper focus on independency. But
Yes. Talk
we
about it.
have a lot of smart, amazing, great, dope, whatever adjective you want to use, people within our community. So we do have an abundance of it. We spend a lot of money, but the problem is that we're not passing that down to the next generation, or we're not utilizing it for the betterment of the community. We're utilizing it for the betterment of ourselves. And again, the goal is to make sure that you're setting your next generation up for success. So I do think we do have an abundance of information, an abundance of knowledge, an abundance of education. And even there are some amazing people like yourselves that are on this call, right, that are on this video, who are doing some great things within real estate, within education, and helping out other communities. The problem is that there isn't enough, or and we aren't glorifying those that are doing it. We aren't putting them up on a pedestal and saying, y'all are being great. Instead, we want the easy route, the fast route. We idolize the entertainment industry. We idolize rappers and singers and musicians and things like that. If we hear somebody, I was in Baltimore or Washington, I was in DC. And I went to this restaurant with my old college roommate, and they had a dude who was playing the trombone, and then he would get out and start singing, and he would start playing the keys. And I was like, woo, that boy, right there. He's going places, right? He's great. But at the end of the day, why don't I have that same energy when I see somebody playing, doing Black Wall Street? Why don't we as a community, because people were paying money just to see them perform. Why don't we have this same investment into people that are doing real estate like Tad? Like, why don't we uplift those? There should be nobody who is Black and an educator in any type of capacity who doesn't have the backing of their community, because that is the ultimate way that information is being passed down, is through education. So that, in my opinion, we are wealthy, but we're not using it right. And that's why the wealth doesn't get passed down to the next generation. And that's why we're not supported by the different community. Because if you told your children as you grow, this is the primary focus, we need to build family. We need to build the Black community. Now, granted, you always gonna have outliers. No matter what, we can't save everybody, right? But people will grow up knowing that there is no choice but to support the Black community, and we're going to uplift them. So I don't feel like I need to go buy some clothes that's from a non-Black owned company. Why do that when I know my homie is selling t-shirts or hats? I can go purchase a hat from the homie. And I know that money goes back into the community because he's from the community and he's a part of the community, as opposed to saying, I'm going to go to this random spot where I don't know who owns it, or the person that does own it doesn't care about our community or isn't willing to reinvest in our community appropriately. So, yeah, we do have it, but we got to do better.
Yeah. Definitely agree with you, brother. Definitely agree with you. You know something? It's funny when you said that about the hat. McDonald's just launched a program in which they're helping Black fashion designers, because only 7% of the fashion designers in the entire fashion community is African American.
That's terrible.
But we spend more money on fashion than everybody. We even set the trends for fashion. And to your point, if we really took that focus off of trying to get what everybody has, or what everybody has taught us to aspire to, and focus that energy into supporting Black businesses, Black entertainers, Black educational institutions, things like that, our community will transform overnight. But the problem is, like, what's this? There's a book called The Souls of Black Folks that really speaks to an example where W.E. Du Bois was talking about the boy who grew up with the two boys that grew up in the field, and the one that went to college and the one that stayed home, and they had this, like, all this falling down, things like that, but they from the same place, right? We grew up in the field together. I just chose one profession and you chose another. We stopped looking at people's professions and adding value to them because of that, but looking towards adding value because of their contributions to the community and to their households. Then we'll have a whole different perspective of how we will even deal with each other. Because a degree is just a degree. Like I tell all my students, your degree is your ticket to the race. You got people who got 3-4 degrees and didn't get a job in the industry they work in, right? But you got $200,000 worth of what? Student debt. So what value is there if you can't add value to yourself, add value to your home, and add value to your community? The Black diaspora is huge. We didn't even talk about the Latino Blacks, right? Yep. We can really get into the diaspora, right? We have so much wealth, but to your point, we don't utilize it right. we don't have the right conversations, and we're not collectively together on one accord or one mindset. That's why people love Black Panther so much. You've seen a Black community with everybody together, right? They got the technology, they got the wealth, they got everything. We can replicate this at any time once we decide to be focused to work together and to have one mindset as a community to create that culture. Because rappers are great people, right? There's nothing wrong with rap music, but how many of the rappers are really invested in the community? You got some like Akon, right? He did a program like Africa. He going back into the villages that don't have electricity and put electricity into these villages. We have to look at where we can contribute and where we can have purpose overall. And like I said, each one teach one and each one love one. We got to get back to that community love. Akon doing lights, that's great. Whoever want to help do lights, get with Akon. Do lights, right?
Yeah.
If somebody else is doing something, McDonald's another example. McDonald's Black franchises are doing create jobs in fashion industry, new brands, things like that we can support and buy from. Help that, but pick some purpose and be purposeful with your life. Because a degree, like I said, a degree is a degree. I got a degree in licenses, right? Finna get my PhD. I'm like, but what that's gonna do if I'm not doing anything that is meaningful and adding purpose and adding value to the community? I just got a whole bunch of papers that I make money with.
And I think that, again, just going back to, that individualism, you know what I mean? We have never, as the diaspora, have never been successful as an individual. It's always been a community. And I agree with you, in regards to, we shouldn't look down on anybody for their profession. Regardless of what you do, I don't care if you're a plumber, I don't care if you're a window cleaner. It all works to make the community better. And that's why I can have a conversation with a homeless person and still feel great, right? And feel inspired and listen to their message and say, you know what, man, I appreciate you, bro. You just helped me out. You gave me perspective. So not judging people based on their career path, because somebody loves, as long as you love what you're doing, I'm rocking with you, period. So
yeah. And I think to that point as well, when you have the mindset of we're going to build a city, like we're going to build a Black Wall Street, you need every job. So
right.
you no longer can even afford to look down at the trash man or look down at the person cleaning toilets, look down at the doctor, because you need every single piece to build our community, right? So I want to ask y'all, what do you think is missing from the typical wealth conversation? I do want to make sure that, we're hitting this from all different angles. And I listen to a lot of wealth podcasts, go to a lot of wealth conferences, and it starts to get somewhat good repetitive, right? Because it's good to get that repetition. But at the same time, I always feel like, I think there's something missing from this convo. I just don't know what it is. So from y'all perspective, when we typically talk about Black wealth and how to generate wealth, what are we missing?
I think something. And we've been talking about community the whole time. I don't think we talk about it when I say like the narrative of community leading the conversation as to why we're building wealth. I think that's not always a part of the conversation. We know it inherently, but we don't always speak to it. I just did a lunch and learn session for St. Bernard's Hospital for about 40 nurses. And we talked about, how real estate can help them, how real estate can do this. But one part of the conversation we also had is about creating jobs, right? Creating opportunity for your family to move forward. And I think if we can center that thing about community being the spearhead or the foundation for creating wealth, I think people start to understand it differently, right? It's a difference when you, to your point, like keeping grandpa house and big mama house, right? Now, if somebody don't got nowhere to stay, right, they can stay there. If you want to rent it out, you can rent it out, right? If it's equity in the home, you can take equity out those homes and reinvest it in your family and in the communities. I think we need to really make sure that we're honed in the foundation. It's not wealth. The foundation is community.
I like that. And then building on that, Sinclair put a succession plan is what's missing, right? I think sometimes we might buy the house, we might start the business, but we're not sure the correct vehicles to pass it down to the next generation. How do we train the next generation to be
Mhm.
property managers, to be CEOs, to be COOs? So I think yeah, succession plan is a good piece that we need to get better at within our community as well. All
Yeah,
right.
I would agree with that 100% because we
So
have a lot of people that open businesses that be great, and then after they get ready to retire, the kids don't want the business, so
yeah.
they either close the business or sell the business. Perfect example here in the Chicagoland market. They have a place called Gary Popcorn. This is some of the best popcorn. Like people come from St. Louis, right, to Chicago and other places throughout the United States to eat this popcorn. But it was started by a black family, and they end up selling it.
Mm,
When if they had the right succession plan in place, guess what? They could have held on to it. And like I would I'll give credit to what's his name, Damon John Fubu.
yep.
Like he's really about keeping that, even though Fubu is not the brand it was 30 years ago, right? Fubu is still around, and he's investing in other businesses, right? And he's creating opportunities for people to pass these businesses along to their children. Sometimes we got to be realistic and say that you may create a business in the beginning for yourself, but if your children don't want to take it on, how do we make it still sustainable for job creation and wealth creation in the community?
Right. And that, like, you're building on, I think, a possible $1 billion idea for someone to take. And I'm gonna say the idea just in case you didn't hear it. And hey, get to it, build it. And this is, how do you create a platform where if there are these small black owned businesses that are going to retire, they want to see their brand continue, how can we create a marketplace where people can go in and buy small black owned businesses and keep them black owned? I
That's
think
dope.
we see, Amazon will acquire a whole bunch of companies. We see Procter and Gamble will acquire Bevel and all these other black owned companies. But how do we create a marketplace where if you have your business and you want to keep it black owned, you want to keep it generating jobs in the community, you can upload it to this Black Wall Street portal, whatever we want to call it, and you
There you
can
go.
accept bids. You can accept. Nah, the branding isn't good on that. I just said that, but the
No, what
branding
I'm
doesn't
saying
quite
though,
align. But
branded is one thing, but the conceptual concept is there, right?
right,
You
it's
can call it
there.
whatever you want to call it, right? We can call it, like they call it, what they call them, the angels, right? The investment angels, right?
Yep.
Black angels, right? If you wanted to call it that, right? We can call it whatever we want to call it, but the concept conceptually of you don't have anybody who can take over your business. You have a great business, financially sound, and you want to not, sell it, but also still be a part of the leadership because that's important too. Because
Mhm.
that's years of wisdom of building a business. If you've been working on a business for 30 years, you don't want to kick the old man, the old lady out. You know what I'm saying? Like, look, we need you to sit on here and be an advisor now. It's
Right.
like we don't give you advisory credits. You still have some ownership, right? So your family can continue to thrive at the same time. But we don't need to let businesses just kind of like fade out. It's too much brilliance in our community
Too
for that.
much brilliance. Look, you about to get me in trouble. Sinclair hearing me with this other business idea. You about to get me in trouble on here. Like,
It's enough
don't
for us. We can just partner up. It might be
there,
50, 60, 70 of us.
there you go. There you go.
You got like Josiah said, you can't do anything great alone.
No, sir.
So we
Uh,
got to, we got to mob up, like what the young kids say, gang, gang.
mhm.
Like, yeah, we just go
Yep,
ahead and do what we need to do.
there it is. All right, Josiah, talk to us. What do you think is missing from the wealth conversation?
I'll take it a different direction. Because I definitely agree with everything that was already said. I'll just take it to like we don't talk enough about how hard it is. Like,
Mm,
even yeah, even people who talk about like real estate, you know what I mean, or talk about like we don't talk about the stuff that's challenging. Like, right, it's like, oh, just go buy this property and then fix it up, and then you're gonna be $200,000 of equity, and just, you know what
easy.
I'm saying? It's not like, what about contractors ripping you off? What about the
Mm,
price of materials? What about
Mm.
like, tenants not paying? You know what I'm saying? Like, what about like, so I feel like we don't talk about how hard it is. Like, nobody would ever just say, like, just go get an engineering degree. You go to school, get your degree, you're gonna come out, you're gonna be making $150,000. Like, it's just that quick. Like, it doesn't work like that. Like, I think we need to talk about how challenging it is, just like to be great at anything in life.
mm,
It's hard. And so I think again, we don't want to scare people away, but we do want to be open and honest about it. Like, being an entrepreneur is hard. Being an investor is hard, right? Like, working in real estate is hard. Like, getting a degree is hard. Like, you have to be honest to these people, because a lot of people, especially again, talking about social media, they promote it as if it's, you just do this and you're gonna be rich, or you just do that and you're gonna have 80 properties in like 2 years. And it's like, you ain't got 10 properties by 45. Like, what are you doing in life? Like, no, like it's really, really difficult. But just because it's hard, it doesn't mean impossible. So we still want to paint the picture that this is possible, it's doable, but we want to be realistic and let people know, bro, you're not about to be partying like you was partying before. Your money about to be tied up for the next couple years, because you got to put that money into this. But recognizing that it's a temporary sacrifice for a long-term gratification, a long-term gain. As challenging as it's going to be that you can't go on trips with your homies, as challenges as it's going to be that maybe you got to get in through general admission as opposed to getting a booth this time, you know what I'm saying? Or maybe you might not be able to go out at all. It's challenging for now, but that sacrifice is going to pay off in the long run. And this is why you have to think years in advance. How is this right now going to help me out for what the long-term goal is 20, 30 years from now? So that's, again, I just took a different direction. I just think we have to be more realistic that gaining wealth is not easy. Being wealthy is not easy, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
Sure. I love that.
You know something? I just want to add something to your point. Like, my father used to tell us when we was kids, success is on the other side of through, right? Making sure that people understand you're gonna have to go through something to be successful. I don't care what it is you do, right? Baseball, football, like you said, engineering. We do need to have those real conversations. And I think one of the things we don't do in education is have those real conversations with students, right? So like I tell my students, I use a race as an analogy. Your degree is your ticket into the race. You're going to have to compete to get a job, right? Especially if you're working in communication and advertising or innovation where ideas count most. There's a lot of people to compete with. When you graduate from school, you may have 1,000 other people or 20,000 other people, depending on the institution you want to work at, vying for that one job that you got. How do you make it into the space, or how do you create a space for you at a smaller company or a startup, right? No, understanding that success is not going to just be an instantaneous moment. It's going to be a series of moments of success and failures. You're going to have to go through something, because what happens, to your point, Josiah, is people come in with those Facebook videos or YouTube videos and they think it
ain't all sweet, like, man. It ain't all sweet.
Hit that wall. Now I lost $2,000. I'm finna quit. But you're not the first person to lose $2,000. Right. Even if you look at, like, who was that? Lee Iacocca from Ford Motor Company, right? Before he made the Mustang. He didn't think he was going to make the Mustang. Everybody hated his guts. They talking about, that car sucks, right? He wanted to fire him, all types of stuff. He went and created a car, became one of the top cars even to this day in Ford, right? You're going to have to go through something to be successful. Like Michael Jordan's quote when he talked about, I'm thinking how many shots, I can't think of the number, the way the quote was said right now.
Miss 1,000.
I think he shot like, 10,000 shots, it's like, in order to get where I am today. That's a lot of shots for one man, right? Think about that. And he wasn't even at the peak of his career when he made the quote, right? So you got to hone your skills. You have to have endurance, and you have to persevere in order to be successful. And you're going to need people that's going to help you along the way. If we can start to really have those conversations with our children and our young professionals and change their outlook of what it is they're doing, don't stop just because you hit a wall. Everybody gonna hit a wall, right? You can't have all upside and no downside, right? But once they can understand that, it's easier to stay on course, stay on pace, and reach their plateaus.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And speaking of that resilience, the thing that I think is missing from the typical wealth conversation is the process that we still need to go through to heal what we've been through. There's a really good book called Post-Traumatic Slave Syndrome, and it kind of talks about how being able to survive the institution of slavery, we needed to have a certain mindset, certain habits, a different uh, culture was built on surviving through slavery. And some of those things, mindset wise, how we raise our children, how we punish our children, are still here today that we're basically using in reaction just off of culture based on things that happened to us 400 years ago. You talked about how we don't uplift our educators. That's because in the institution of slavery, it was illegal for us to read. It was illegal for us to teach each other. So now when we see us or people teaching, it's still like ooh, don't go over there. It's dangerous, right? Like something that my grandma told me when I first created Black Wall Street, the board game, and I told her my long-term vision of wanting to rebuild Black Wall Street. She was like, "Ooh, be careful, right? Because you know what
Mm,
happened last time. So
mm.
be careful, right? We're still in that, I think, state of fear. And we're still in that state of we need to heal our minds, we need to heal our souls in order to go back to the days where we were building ancient civilizations in Kemet. We were
Mhm.
building empires in Mali. Like we built communities, we built empires before. It's nothing new to us, but
Mhm.
we've been through a short period of 400 years where we were seen and treated as subhuman. And now we need to heal from that period of time, I think, to get back to the empire building that we're used to and that we're known for.
Mhm.
You know? So amazing conversation, y'all. I appreciate it. If you're watching live, thank you for all the questions, the comments. If you're watching in the future, we appreciate you, and we hope that the future looks brighter and wealthier than it did today when we recorded this. And let us know what the future looks like. As we get on out of here, I want y'all to give any shout outs, places where people can go to get connected with you, and then one tangible action step that people can do in the month of July in order to start building wealth, right? It can be a mindset shift. It can be registering for a course. It can be subscribing to Wise Word Wednesdays. It can be whatever you feel like would be a good small action step that would get them on the right path. Brother.
Um, I'll go ahead and start. So definitely you can follow me on Joe Spider underscore FYB on Instagram, Joe Spider on Facebook. And I would say, one tangible thing that I think you can do when we start looking at wealth is um, examining your monthly spending. Right?
Mhm.
You can go do a 1 month research examination of how your money has been going, um, and where it's been going to, so that way you can see where you can cut back on. Um, I think if a lot of us to understand where our money is being put out, that gives us the ability to then see where we can then reallocate that money. So I would definitely say go in and just take a look at where your spending is going for the past month and where it's been going, and then ask yourself, do you need these things, and how can you take that money and reinvest it into yourself, into the future, into the future today.
There it is. Make a budget, examine your spending. Thank you, Josiah. Appreciate you, King. Emery, talk to us.
Okay, well, I think, let me start with a point in regards to thinking about how to create wealth. I think the first thing you need to understand, I think there's a great book written by Robert Kiyosaki called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It shows the perspective of a poor dad and the perspective of a rich dad. So you can get an understanding of where you are, where you want to go, and how you want to lead your family moving forward. Understanding the difference between liabilities and assets is very important in creating wealth, because everything that you have and buy is not an asset that's producing money. So I think you should start there to get that grounded understanding. And then also for those who are interested in real estate investment, reach out to us at Tad Realty. Our website is www.tadrealty.com. We have a great program called Make Real Estate Real, where you can take the course and learn everything that you need to know about becoming a real estate investor so you can make an impact in your community. And we are helping families nationwide. Just because you don't want to invest in Chicago, guess what? You can invest where you at. Come take the class with us. We have my mentor and managing broker, Miss April Troop. She's been in the real estate business for over 40 years. and the system will give you all the love and knowledge that you need for you to
Facts.
be successful.
Big facts. When we went out to Chicago, April treated us right. We spent the
Good
whole day
people,
with
bro.
April. Yeah, it was a real good vibe, family vibe for sure. So make sure y'all tap in. For me, I'm gonna say I was gonna say budget, so I can't say that now. I was gonna say mention some books. What you said. You know, I'm just gonna go ahead and keep it on brand. Make sure y'all go ahead and get Black Wall Street the board game.
Talk
All right?
about it.
Go ahead and go to playblackwallstreet.com. Grab yourself Black Wall Street the board game, because this is going to do multiple things for you. One, it's going to force you to read and learn about your own history, which is beautiful, about the history of Tulsa Black Wall Street, one of the most successful Black communities in history. But then two, it's going to start exposing you to words like sole proprietor, LLC, corporation, dividend, tax returns. It's going to just get all these wealth concepts into your mind, and hopefully you'll be able to play with family members and start talking about how you can take the concepts in the game and start to apply them in real life. All right, so go ahead and get Black Wall Street board game today. Playblackwallstreet.com. Kings, much appreciative. Thank you so much for your wisdom today. Thank you for your time today. And I look forward to having more conversations like this with y'all in the future.
Well, thank you for the invite, man. It's nice meeting you, Josiah.
Likewise.
Brother Devon, we got plenty to do. Josiah, you're going to have to come on, rock with us on some of these programs.
Yeah, man. I'm about to get out there, get out to the shy. You know what I'm saying?
We come to Cali.
Look, either way, Chicago or LA, the Bay, Sacramento, we can make a move happen for sure. But appreciate y'all. I'm
looking forward to it.
Yeah, let's do it. All right, appreciate y'all tapping in. Enjoy the rest of Black Future Month. Next week, we got our last roundtable of the month, and it's talking about Black love, right? How do we make sure that the Black family is strong? Exactly. How do we make sure that the Black family is strong and at the foundation of everything that we do, which is going to help with our wealth, which is going to help generate education, which is going to help generate healing within the community as well. So make sure y'all come back next week, same time, same place. Until next time, peace.
God bless, bros.
We have Black Studies courses available today for just $1. Your kids can't learn everything they need to on YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook alone. So we created the most powerful online Black Studies course and platform we could. You can start today for just $1. Learn about Mansa Musa. Learn about Tulsa Black Wall Street. Learn about Queen Calafia, Queen Saraonya, and all the other melanated genius and brilliance that this world has to offer today for just $1. Go ahead and click the link below, and we'll see your scholars in class.